It's astonishing. It's striking for sure that when Jesus begins his public ministry, he finds Simon and his brother Andrew, and he simply says, "Follow after me, come after me, and I will make you fishers of men." And they actually do. And then a little further on, he sees James and John, and he says something similar to them, and they leave everything and their father, and they follow him. the immediate reaction of them, the way they so quickly and entirely respond to something totally out of the blue, and that is totally life-changing. It's astounding to us. With that in mind, I want you to just look at in your own life the disposition of your heart to the call to a great perilous adventure that is discipleship, that is following the Lord. Because all through the gospel, Jesus uses the terms that we associate with great adventure. He talks about battles with serpents and treasure and peril and good versus evil and light in darkness and difficulty and sacrifice and joy and glory, everything that comes with it. So we got lots of good adventure stories that we know. I don't know which the main ones for your family, but there are plenty, and they usually follow this archetypical pattern, the hero's journey. So Luke Skywalker is the typical example of this, because the guy who looked through all of the stories of heroes in human history and tried to compile what is the pattern that all of them follow, the shape that they all follow. He was very influential for George Lucas writing Star Wars. So the story of Luke Skywalker and the hero's journey in that has all of the pieces in just the right places. But there are plenty of other stories like that with different variations. Lord of the Rings is another really, really good, important one. Or The Hobbit, just before, with Bilbo Baggins, or Frodo in Lord of the Rings. I think these are both helpful because almost always the hero's journey, the adventure story, it starts with some sort of cataclysmic thing, some sort of initiation of this story, and then the hero is unwillingly pulled into the story. And the differences between these, I think, are really helpful. So Luke Skywalker, if you remember, episode 4, A New Hope, he's very discontent where he is. He doesn't want to stay on his uncle's moisture farm forever because they live on a desert planet. I just love this. So they're water farmers. They just harvest moisture from the air. But he doesn't want to stay there forever. And in the beginning, Luke is so whiny. And there's just great jokes about how Luke Skywalker whines about everything. "Oh, I wanted to go to Tashi Station. You never let me leave." And Uncle Owen's "You do your chores first." So he's discontent. But then, when he is invited into this adventure, when he goes with the droids to see Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Obi-Wan says, I don't know if I can do this, "You must train in the ways of the Jedi, just as your father did." Something like that, That actually was better than I thought it was going to be. That's Alec Guinness. He's, "Hello there," Luke is faced with what he kind of was hoping for, and he resists. He says, No, I could never do this. Don't want to do this. I got to go back to the farm. It's funny because he's restless to begin with, and then the door is open, and he can't pass through it. He won't pass through it until actually everything that was in his past, his family and their farm, is demolished and destroyed, and there's nothing left for him there. Then, okay, he can continue on forward. But it's funny because he's got this inner conflict going on. I think the story of Bilbo at the beginning of The Hobbit is very helpful for us too, because he lives kind of an idyllic life in a beautiful place that is the Shire, where everything's routine and peaceful and predictable. And this is a lot more like the world that we live in. Not all of us, but most of us live in some sort of pretty risk-free, suburban, semi-rural paradise. Even when we take on risks, they're calculated and safe, and very often guaranteed by the federal government, okay, well, we'll take on this debt or something, we'll take this risk, whatever. But we don't usually just launch ourselves into something that is actually dangerous. So Bilbo's here, and Gandalf kind of gives him a warning, but then he marks his house, his hobbit hole, for the dwarves to come and find him, because he will be the burglar for their escapade, their adventure. And Bilbo is so unaware. But when they arrive and they start eating all his food and like emptying the larder of all the best cheese that he was saving for another day and all that stuff, what's wild is what Bilbo is concerned about is don't chip the plates. You know, like they're prepping to go and take on a dragon. And he's like, the china. And it's comical and ridiculous, and this is us, you know? Like, but we have this little perfect, like don't break it, don't chip it. Eventually he goes, again, with resistance, difficulty, all of that stuff. Sometimes this happens to us, like, you know, the story Around the World in 80 Days, the valet, Passepartout. A little while into the trip, he realizes this very domestic concern. He realizes, I left my gas burner on, and we're going to be gone for a long time, and that thing's just going to burn because we're not turning around. This happens to us in the middle of the journey too. Like, wait, oh no, I forgot to lock the door or whatever. Okay, I'm bringing up all of this because this is what happens in the gospel today. Jesus, as he encounters Simon and Andrew, James and John, this is not like this is a call to adventure. This is what the call to discipleship is. It involves glory and difficulty, and we do want it, but then it comes and we say, well, can't I have both these things? Can't I have this adventure and stay comfortably at home? And of course the answer is no. Sometimes we are tempted to ignore the call to this kind of responsibility and mission because we're shielded like from the effects of evil. So this is what's going on in the Shire. Like when Frodo begins, there's no sense of darkness yet. Everything's fine. Everything's good. But the call then is you have to leave this good place to go do this difficult thing that will take everything that you have, because if you stay here and do nothing, then all of this will be gone. All of this will be ravished and destroyed. You haven't seen it yet, it isn't here yet, but it's coming, and we have to go and do something about it before it arrives here. So in the movies, this doesn't come up, but if you read Lord of the Rings, you get to the end of the book, they come back to the Shire, and bad things have happened because the reach of darkness has finally gotten there. This is the same with us too. Like, we can put our heads in the sand for a while, but like, till when? And I would say that we're at a point where, like, this stuff, it's like a virus. It's like a disease. It comes from everywhere. You can have a beautiful home and family and a safe place and a holy house, and it's still going to make its way in. We have to go out and do something about it. This is what Jesus calls us to. To take up this adventure, then, there's two very important differences between the hero's journey and what's going on with us and Jesus calling us. The first one is, like, I don't want you to get from this like a main character syndrome, okay? Where you think like everything's on me and I'm the main character, and there's some really cringy kind of memes and shorts and videos about this where people say main character syndrome, and it's usually people that are just like who do you think you are, you know? They're like, how do you not know who I am, and get out of my way and all this stuff. Like, you're just like the rest of us, you know? So I don't want you to have main character syndrome. In these books, yes, there is like a main character and protagonist, but in this book, in the book of the history of the world, Jesus is the main character, and we get to play a part in this. And that's like good news and humbling news, because it means that not everything depends on us. It depends on him. But it's humbling too, because we're not the protagonist. Thank goodness. So in this story, like, you know, God writes a beautiful story with your life, for sure. But it is part of this greater story. This is the story of God and his love and mercy for humanity and the world, and his overcoming of the power of darkness. Okay, that's the first big difference. We're not Bilbo, we're not Frodo exactly, we're not Luke Skywalker. But the second thing is that the way that this looks it's different than what we imagine, because it usually is not external, or the most important parts of this story are not external and to be seen. Okay, some of them are. You know, St. Ignatius of Loyola, who founded the Jesuits, he was just like a selfish, prideful man looking for worldly glory. He cared a lot about his looks. He wanted to impress. He was kind of courageous, but ultimately for his own gain. And then he got a cannonball to the leg, and he had to lay in bed for a long time. And he read the stories of the saints there, and the thought that occurred to him was, St. Francis of Assisi, St. Dominic, did incredible things. Why not me? I'm not different from them. They are ordinary and I am ordinary. Why can't I do something like that? And then actually he did, okay? That bears fruit in something external. Great, beautiful, awesome. But that is actually less important than the other things, these two other things that are really the heart of this. The first one is most of the time it looks like ordinary life. Okay, there are times where we're called to do extraordinary things, to go to distant lands, to stand up and speak in bold ways and things. Fine, yes. But a lot of it is to live an ordinary life. If you want more on this, read G.K. Chesterton, because he just talks about how extraordinary and hidden ordinary life is. And we look down on it sometimes, and it's not ordinary at all. Just to live a good life. Okay? Most of the time it looks like ordinary, looks very ordinary, and it's not. But the second part is that the most important parts of this are interior and invisible. It happens in the heart, in this hidden place of intimacy with us and God, the transformation of us. So to a point where we can say with St. Paul, it is no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me. It isn't that it's not that I want to do great things for God, but that God wants to do great things in me, through me. I want God to do things, to live in me, to live through me. Okay, that bears much greater fruit. Because I'm very small, pretty weak, duplicitous, all of these things, But the Lord is power and goodness and light. When he calls us into this adventure, when he calls us to follow him, this is what he's asking for. Okay, most of it is interior. And it takes so much courage, not because our enemies are so great, though they are. Every evil dragon, every serpent in any book is like a little caricature, like a funny kind of comical image of the real terrible, ugly, hideous, powerful thing that is Satan. Okay, but relative to Jesus, Satan is nothing. It isn't so difficult because our enemies are so powerful and great. It takes so much courage because of the crucifixion. Okay, St. Paul, he said, God sent me to preach the gospel, and not by means of human eloquence, so that the cross of Christ would not be emptied of its meaning. This is what we mean by the meaning of the cross of Christ. It means that every day we die, we join Jesus on the cross. It means we lay down our lives and give them up. We become wet clay for the Lord to shape and form, and not for us to shape and form, and not just once, not just at the moment of baptism or at a moment of great conversion, but every single day we become pliable and docile, ready to follow the Lord where he calls us and takes us, whatever he wants to do in us. So the call is to great adventure. And it's true, actually, that the stakes are as high as they can possibly be. The world is on the line, like the salvation of every person alive, and many people who are not yet alive are on the line. Know with certainty that this call that Jesus gives is addressed to you and to me.